Hey you guys, welcome back to Rooted Homeschool. If you're new here, I'm Christina, homeschooling mom to 5 kids, ages 18 months, 2.5, 6, 10, and 13. Today, I am doing part 2 of the homeschool Q&A, answering the questions that you guys had over on Instagram. Yesterday's video, I started answering the questions and I realized it was getting kind of long. How long is this video so far? Okay, it's getting kind of long. I'm gonna try to be quick. I cut it short and decided to make a part 2. So if you missed yesterday's video, definitely go check that out. Well, there are 2 more, okay. Because some of these I kind of answered with other questions. So this one is about read alouds, which is another one of my favorite topics. It says, do you just read or do you stop to discuss, ask questions? And then this got cut off. So I get the gist. And I remember this question coming through. It really depends. So some days we just read, right? And just reading is okay. I think it's important that the kids don't always equate us reading with them having to discuss, having to answer questions, having a writing assignment or related assignment with it. I think it's most important, especially in the beginning, for them to just love reading, for them to just love books, for them to just get immersed in the story. And I think that's enough. The public school teacher in me would have told you, maybe not enough. But the homeschool mom in me, as I've witnessed my children fall in love with books, would say it's enough. Let them interrupt when they want to discuss something. If you think they're not paying attention, stop and just check. In a gentle way, not like, so what just happened? Were you listening? I've done that. Guilty as charged. But do it in a way where you say like, hey, what do you think about what that character just did? We're reading Farmer Boy right now. So something that I would do is say, do you know what that is that they were describing? It's not a test. And I'll tell them, I didn't even know what that was. Wow, I didn't even know what that would look like because this is from a different time period. This is about people that live in a rural area on a farm, and I've never lived on a farm before. And so I sometimes will put myself in the position of the learner, of the thinker, doing that thinking out loud and then allowing them to jump in. Did you know what that was? Did you know what that looks like? So there's so many different ways to do this, and I think it's super fun to just kind of follow their lead. As I mentioned with my other question about history, the same goes for any other book that you're reading. I do think at the same time that there is great value in discussing like structure, style, literary techniques, and all of those things, but I would just see where it makes sense. I would say don't beat the book to death. Let some books just be for enjoyment. Don't have a unit or a lesson plan or a curriculum or a set of questions that they have to answer. Just let it be for fun. And then maybe you get a unit from The Brave Writer, which is kind of a nice mix in between enjoying but also noticing the author's craft, noticing how they use metaphor and figurative language and things like that, because that stuff is necessary too, right? I would just really be careful to not overdo it so that they don't think of reading as like work. Again, hopefully that answers that question. Definitely follow up with more questions on that if you have them. Last one is another one that deserves its own video, and this is, how is your perspective as a teacher and a homeschooler? This is a big question. Homeschooling has completely blown my mind for how I view education. 100%. There's no denying that. I think my training as a teacher was critical to my understanding of how we learn and all of those things. However, I feel like teaching is also one of those things like you learn while you're doing it. And I definitely did as a teacher, learn as I went. Homeschooling is much the same way. So do your research, watch videos, watch YouTube videos about other, how other moms are doing things, follow other homeschool accounts, read books about homeschooling. But homeschooling is also one of those things that you learn as you go, and that's okay. And so my perspective I feel like I would need more specific questions on that, but I can tell you I am fully sold on homeschooling, like 100% fully sold on homeschooling. My humble opinion is this. I don't want anyone to feel judgment. I don't want anyone to think I think one mom is making a better choice than another mom. You know what is best for your children. God has made you their mom, and if you are seeking him about what's best for them and you are listening for his voice and you are following that path, then that's what's best for your child and for your family. My opinion, if I had to give one, is if public school is a healthier environment than your home, then send your kids to public school. I believe that I had many students that school was a more healthy environment than home, 100%. But if your home is a healthier environment than the other place that you're considering sending them for most of their day, most days of the week, most weeks of the year, ask yourself why. Why would I do that? Why am I doing that? For me, I can tell you why I was doing that. I just didn't think there was really another option. I just never thought about it. It's not that I didn't know that homeschooling existed or that there were private schools that exist, but it just wasn't on my radar. And then it was just, this is what everyone does, right? Like, this is what you do. You send your kid to school. Your kid reaches a certain age and you sign them up for school. You don't have to do that though. That's where, as the parent, you decide, like, what is truly best for my child? And then ask yourself, like, what is it that you find important? I could do a whole video on this, but I also bust the socialization myth here for you for a second, and I will end this video here, or at least I will try. I want to talk to you about my 13-and-a-half-year-old Justice, who I could not be more proud of as a mom. Now, is he perfect? No, and neither am I, right? But I want to talk about this socialization thing that everyone is so fixed on in regard to homeschooling versus public school. Why do we think that a very large group of his same aged peers are going to be what's best for him in learning how to develop and become what he's supposed to be? It really doesn't make a ton of sense. Or should I surround him with people that I want him to aspire to be like? So let me tell you, I started homeschooling because of the situation within the past year or so, right? I stuck with homeschooling because I saw my child transform before my very eyes. He was always a beautiful child. He was always a beautiful soul. He was very misunderstood in public school for years. He had some wonderful teachers, but he also had some teachers, I'm just going to put it out there, who saw his skin color. And maybe they didn't mean to, but they did. And they saw his athletic wear and his cool sneakers and his cool haircut, and they saw him as a problem. They didn't see him for who he was, and he carried it. And it was heartbreaking as a mom, and it was evident to anyone who truly knew him, the weight that he was carrying going to public school. And I know that this is not the case for every child, but you can never change what I saw happen to my child after I pulled him out from that social pressure, after I pulled him out of the microaggressions that he was experiencing from teachers and administrators and staff and other students. It's not to say all of them did this, but it was there and it was affecting him and it was breaking down his self-esteem as a young boy. A year later, this is where we are a year later, and my son is entirely transformed. He has actually said to my husband and I used to look in the mirror and not like what I saw. I used to see pictures of myself. This is coming from my 13-year-old son. I used to see pictures of myself and think I was ugly. And now I kind of like what I see. This is not all about looks, but you're talking about a 13-year-old boy who has completely changed the way he sees himself. He's confident in who he is now. He knows who he is. My son was chosen out of 120 youth in his youth group. There were 15 of them chosen for a year-long leadership program for students who showed leadership qualities. This is not me bragging that my son is great. This is not me bragging that I'm a great parent. This is me thanking God for changing the trajectory of his life, as far as I'm concerned as his mother. His life was changed by him being pulled out of school, by him being discipled and built up at home and in youth group at church, and being surrounded by people that saw him for who he actually is. It maddened me as a mom. I mean, I went into phone calls and in-person meetings enraged on the inside. And I always carried myself in a way that I can look at God and say, like, you did your best. I feel like I handled myself in a way that I wouldn't be embarrassed for anyone to know. But on the inside, what I felt as a mom was, you are not seeing my child for who they really are. And I knew that was true, but seeing how he is thriving now after pulling him out of that atmosphere is a testament unto itself, unto God, truly. Now, his social group, when everyone was so worried about socialization, is that group of peers that's not just the kids at youth group, but the kids that were chosen as the ones that are leaders, whose hearts are to serve God and to serve others. So hopefully that, I couldn't think of a better example of how to blow that socialization myth completely out of the water in regard to homeschoolers. I am going to end with that. Please, 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 if you have any other questions, throw them down in the comments. I'd be happy to talk to you over there in the comments. Come talk to me over on Instagram if you're not already following me there at rooted_homeschool. If you can relate to any of these things that I talked about today, if you have kind of some advice or input for other moms that might be reading the comments looking for more after watching this video, please, 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 let's talk down in the comments. If you are not already subscribed, I would love if you'd stick around, click that red subscribe button, click the notifications bell, and I hope to see you soon in one of my next videos. Until then, stay rooted.